Now everyone's saying it. If you drive less, you pay less for car insurance. But how much less? A tad less. A smidge less. Around 20%-ish less? Or a whole lot less? Like 70% less for comprehensive car insurance from South Africa's hottest pay-per-K insurer, Chili from King Price. We're big into less. Like 70% less. Visit kingprice.co.za for a quote.
We are here at Westvaal, this Peugeot dealership here in Menlyn, quite new. And I had a meeting with Kevin Lombard, the DP here, earlier this week. And he took me through this amazing new dealership. And we stopped and he showed me this new Peugeot 2008.
No,
Not
2008.
2008, but that's an old model, man. 2020 now.
It's quite interesting.
It's 2021 now.
In South Africa, we go 2008. But unfortunately, there's a certain British agent that's going to come after you if you call it a 2008. So it's a 2008. It's actually a model I've been looking forward to having a look at.
I was blown away. It bugged me since the first time I saw it, and I said, listen, we need to do a review on this car.
For many years, I think, in fact, a lot of the French manufacturers have always been distinct in terms of their design. So
Correct.
you can't confuse this
With anything else.
any other vehicle. It's typically Peugeot. There are some nice design cues, just talking about the heritage, because you must remember Peugeot is one of the oldest car manufacturers that is around as well. So here we see a fang of a lion over here. You can't really pick it up on the Allure. You'll have a look at the GT line lights, but these are the claw
marks and whatever the case is.
because of course it is a lion.
Exactly. Let's move to the side. Obviously, we're test driving the Allure today, but again, nicely diamond cut alloy wheels.
Awesome ride height as well.
Correct.
Not a 4x4, but it's a little SUV.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like the lines, very, very distinctive, like you said. Not like something else that you've seen.
For sure. And then at the rear, this seems to be a bit of a design cue now for the SUVs in the Peugeot range. So these are very similar to the 5008 and the 3008 lights.
Yeah.
Translated now into the 2008, it looks fantastic. This car looks a lot bigger than the outgoing 2008.
That's exactly my point. It's completely different cars. The previous model didn't really look like a SUV. It looked like a bigger
hatch.
Yeah.
Now we're sitting inside. I want you to start the vehicle and let's have a look at what the cluster looks like.
Just look at that.
It's such a pity that we don't have 3D glasses for the viewers, because actually this cluster is in 3D, which is amazing.
Unfortunately, you won't be able to see that on air, but it's actually, like you say, a 3D screen, and that is just simply amazing. Let's run through this infotainment center. So this is a 10-inch touchscreen infotainment center.
Yep, and it's got Android Auto and Apple CarPlay,
all the normal stuff. This is something that just boggles my mind. I really feel like I'm in a fighter jet.
For sure.
Toggle switches.
So the switchgear is fantastic.
Yeah.
Moving a little bit further down, this is where we start to get to the business end. So we've got 4 USB ports, 3 of which are USB-Cs. So here's a USB-C, and that means for those that are not in the know, this is not only can transport a lot of data, but it's also for charging.
Yeah.
And there's 2 at the rear over here, which is an absolute must-have for kids.
Yes,
they
these
demand
days.
that. And then
just look at this feature. This is one of my favorites.
This is very cool. So if we just open this cover over here,
it's not just a small little cubbyhole.
No, it's a wireless charging docking station.
Yeah.
But if you're in a bit of a rush and you don't want to connect your phone through to the infotainment system for your media, you can still just run your phone off here.
That's a very clever touch. Not something that I've seen before.
Very cool. I love the attention to detail on that. So again, looking at the detail, if we have a look at the door trim, you can see the colors on the door trim. Obviously the different colors that are available, but the stitching matches the stitching on the trim,
on the seats,
and the carpet's stitching matches the seat stitching.
All right, let's take this puppy for a drive.
Excellent.
So Pete, my initial feeling when I got into this car and when I started actually driving very slowly in the parking lot is that this is probably one of the softest steering wheels that I've ever had in my life.
It is, and it's going to firm up, as you'll feel now as we're driving. You'll feel it start to firm up.
Yeah.
So it's an electric motor that
Right.
gives the power assistance.
And I can immediately feel it now.
Yeah. And in the early days of electric motors, when they used them, there was a lot of criticism because it almost felt like there was a delay.
Yes.
But you'll feel now that this is a very direct feel on the
Very.
steering wheel. But here's a few other things that I wanted to highlight to you. And that is that despite this not being a 4x4, it's got some 4x4 settings,
Yeah.
believe it or not. So let's start with the drive modes. So it's got traditional drive modes that you'd find in a SUV. So we've got normal, we've got mud, we've got snow.
Not that we'd
So-
use that every like 10th year in Pretoria.
And sand.
Yeah. So let's talk about the engine quickly. It's a 1.2 litre turbo engine.
Yep.
I must say that it's actually very responsive. I'm not feeling any turbo lag to speak of. The gearbox is actually very, very well geared as well. So yeah, what's your sort of first impression from driving?
Well, sitting in the passenger seat, the car feels very sprightly, I've got to say.
Yeah.
So not your typical 1.2 litre type of response out of the engine.
Yeah.
I was expecting, on a car this size, I was expecting it to be a little bit asthmatic, but it's not. It's very perky.
All right. I think it's time that you get behind the steering wheel.
Excellent.
Okay, Pete, so you're in the driver's seat. What's your first impression behind the steering wheel?
The first impression, unfortunately for me, is I've got a problem with the steering wheel. It is in the way of the cluster. Now, I can tilt it down, and I've got full view of the cluster, but now I feel like I'm driving with the steering wheel between my kneecaps,
Sure.
which is a bit of a weird feeling. I prefer a nice high
Just
position
to
of the
mention,
steering
this
wheel.
is telescopic and up and down, so
Yeah.
you can move it up and down and everywhere.
So I suppose
But-
there, but then I feel like I've got FOMO. I'm missing out on the bottom half of the cluster.
Yeah.
But let's leave it there and let's see if I get used to it. It really, I suppose, boils down to just the fact that we've got to get used to it.
We will.
I tell you, the advantage though is the small steering wheel does give the car a bit more of a dynamic feel.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so I mean, we are at altitude
Yes.
and we're going up quite a steep hill up here, and I'll tell you what, this little motor is hugely impressive. I'm quite astounded actually. It feels like we've got a nice big engine in here.
And in this price segment, compared to other vehicles, we actually, I'm finding that I'm getting a lot more here for the
Yes.
same sort of price.
Yes, no, for sure.
And that brings us to the elephant in the room. Peugeot as a brand. You know, when I came to see Kevin in the dealership, it's just almost a brand that is always been there, but we don't really actually give it attention.
It's a great tragedy for me, because if you think about the fact that Peugeot is huge in Europe. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a dominant player in Europe, and rightly so. The cars are fantastic. I'm a little bit biased. I have a Peugeot.
Yeah.
Okay. And it is honestly one of the most underrated vehicles that I can describe. So I think Peugeot did go through a bit of a speed bump in South Africa where they developed a poor reputation.
Yeah.
But I think the reality is that a good car is like a good movie. You don't necessarily have to advertise it and market aggressively. The word gets out. And I think that the people cannot, for too much longer, be too hard on Peugeot anymore.
I agree.
You know, you got to come to the party at some stage and recognize and realize that these cars are brilliant.
I agree, and I think as a final thought on our test drive, yes, they've gone through a bit of an issue, like you say. I know that main concern probably was a part supply at a stage. You know, guys waited for a long time, but they have gone through some changes. You know, at management level in South Africa, I think they're on the right track. And what I must say is that if we look at the vehicles now, there's a huge step up from the previous model lineup to this current model lineup when we look at the two 1008, the 3008, the 5008. It looks like a new brand completely for me.
For sure. And just to end off on that concept of a new brand, you must look at the investment that the brand is making in South Africa. So not only are there new dealers that are opening up, but head office.
Yeah.
The facility at head office is absolutely stunning. So there's a massive parts warehouse, beautiful offices, so you can see that the will of Peugeot is here.
Mr. Viljoen, that was a lot of fun, eh?
Yeah, that was proper, eh?
Like I said, we were very excited to come and drive this car, and it definitely didn't disappoint.
For sure, it didn't disappoint. There are a few things that I wanted to actually make mention of that impressed me. The first is that when you've got a 3-cylinder 1.2 litre engine,
Yeah.
you're always looking for excuses as to why it seems to be performing properly.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, we forgot very quickly that this was a 3-pot
Yeah.
little engine, and it performed amazingly.
Agreed. Okay, so Peter, I'm in the back. This is your driving position. And I must say, for a Fanie fit, I'll give this probably 8 out of 10. I've got more than enough space for my legs. There's headroom. I must say that when the door's closed, there's a little bit of a angle coming up. So, I think 2 people in the back, couple of kids in the back, everything, but more 3 people in the back won't work.
For sure, but I don't think it's designed for that, to be honest. I think two adults is a temporary measure, 3 children comfortably.
Agree. And one of the cool things, I must show you that, and we'll zoom in on this, these little lights here at the back are simply touch screen, little soft touch, and it comes on. It's amazing, the attention to detail. I think the only thing we need to do is give our ratings out of 10 in this segment.
Okay, so I'll kick off and I'll justify what I'm going to say. I think if we look at our tick box exercise in terms of what impresses us in a vehicle, there's a lot of attention to detail in the design.
Yeah.
There's a lot of technology that's been applied.
Agree.
There's a lot of things that are different, like the 3-dimensional cluster that I just love every time I switch on and I see this 3-dimensional graphics at play. The engine really astounded me, and I think for that, I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10.
Really?
Yeah, no doubt.
Pete, so I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. The only reason was that there's a couple of small things when you go around the car. The back windows don't go down all the way. The steering wheel, I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to be 100% comfortable with that down the line. But the cool factor here is a 10 out of 10 because I like driving something different. It's not the same. It's not, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
The cool factor here I'll give that a 10 out of 10. But for the car overall as a package, 8 out of 10.
Okay, well there we go. So difference of opinion slightly, but nonetheless, this car really deserves some consideration from buyers looking in this category. And on that note, we look forward to seeing you next time on Let's Talk Automotive.
See you next time, guys. Have a good one.